Ben Askren, fresh off his knockout loss to Jorge Masvidal at UFC 239, speaks on Ariel Helwani's MMA show. He gives his initial reactions and what was going through his head after the fight and when he was in the hospital. He also talks about the huge reaction on social media and says he probably deserves everything he's getting for all the trash talk he was saying during the build-up of the fight.
Okay, how do you feel, first and foremost?
You know what? I think Saturday night was least traumatizing for me. There's a little part of my memory that's blank there, but man, I remember being in the cage with him. I don't really remember the flying knee. And then when I can recall, I remember everything. I was like, oh, I lost to Jorge Masvidal. This freaking sucks. And I didn't really have any pain of any sort, not a headache. Nothing on my face hurts. And so it was just like, oh, Jesus, I lost to Jorge Masvidal. How did I lose to him? How fast was it? I could tell it was pretty fast because I wasn't like sweaty or sore or anything. So I knew it was fast. I didn't know exactly how fast it was. And, apparently I guess I set a record of some sort. My Twitter's been blowing up. Errol, I think my biggest previous tweet was like 27,000 likes or something, which is respectable. But all I wrote after the fight was, well, that sucked. And I didn't feel like I needed to elaborate any more on that. I think it was pretty obvious. And it got like 170,000 likes or something absurd. So I think people are enjoying my pain, which I feel like I probably deserve it. I've been antagonizing people for about a decade now, and it never came up on the end of the stick. Now, I'm not reading everything they're antagonizing me with. Obviously, I'm scrolling through it. I don't want to dwell on that. But, fair enough. I always figured when this point happened that I would get lit up, and I'm not paying attention to it, but I'm sure I'm getting lit up.
He goes on to shut down the idea of a rematch with Jorge Masvidal, says he doesn't deserve that, and says there's nothing he can do about it.
Does the fact that it's a record bother you more?
No, I think that's probably a positive, right? I mean, would you want to be somewhere in mediocrity at like 24 seconds, or you want to have a record at 5? You might as well just have the record.
Okay, so what about the fact that it is a guy that you don't like? The fact that he has this victory over you now?
What am I to do about it? Cry? Ask for a rematch? I don't deserve a rematch. I got knocked out in 5 seconds. What do you want me to do? Ariel, sometimes life doesn't go your way. Sometimes you get your ass kicked. Sometimes you lose. You don't have to like it, but you got to accept it.
Thiago Santos put on a great fight against Jon Jones with over 4 rounds essentially on one leg. Santos injured his left knee in the first round. Now on Monday, Thiago Santos had an MRI done, which revealed he had pretty much torn every ligament in his left knee. The MRI revealed a torn ACL, MCL, and PCL, as well as a meniscus tear. And not only that, they also think Santos may have re-injured his right knee, which he had surgery done prior to UFC 239. Now, MMA Junkie reports that Santos may miss up to 8 months, which officially rules him out for the rest of 2019 and probably half of next year. Santos will undergo surgery in Los Angeles later this week. Jorge Masvidal on the Ariel Helwani MMA show explains how he knew he was going to catch Ben Askren with that flying knee off the start, and he also talks about how many times he drilled the flying knee prior to the fight.
Do you remember when you came up with the idea that you're going to start the fight like that with the flying knee?
Yeah. You want the whole thing on how I know that the knee was going to be for a fact this guy couldn't stop it? It's a little bit of psychology. Now, I can't give up my psychology tips. There's too many fighters watching, man. But listen, the way that he acted in just real life when I get him on the fly, and what I mean by fly is like he's walking and I'm walking and I just pop up on him. The way I habitually popped up on him and made him just freeze up, I knew he couldn't handle improvisation. He can't handle that shit, man. He can't handle changes. I hit him with a nice little change of speeds. He didn't like it one bit. Once it got announced, I was like, yeah, I'm going to beat this guy's ass for 14 minutes. And then I decided, you know what, I'm just going to check him right off the gate and see where he's at. And then when I came here and I saw him in the flesh and I saw how weak he is actually, because maybe in this, well, whoever helping him now is doing a good job for him, but on the fly, he can't do anything. He can't talk to nobody, especially if it's just me and him, So to have those type of characteristics, you're a person that can adapt and survive, and he showed it.
How many times do you think you drilled that?
I drill my techniques a lot. Every one of my techniques. That's why I have some okay techniques. I drill them a lot, man. That's just all I do. You could ask like Mike Brown. I'm not going to give out the numbers, but I drill a lot, man.
Kenny Florian speaks on the Masvidal KO win over Ben Askren. He goes into detail as to how Ben Askren was caught by the flying knee and how big of a risk it was for Jorge Masvidal.
Jorge on the post show was almost surprised that he fell for this so easily. What can you tell me just about Askren and his inability to see this coming?
I think that most fighters, when you're getting ready for, let's say, sparring or, typically, 90% of most fights, you go out there and you feel your opponent out, right? That's what happens. And then you get after it. How often do you start a fight and you see an individual after 1 or 2 seconds right in front of your face, flying in the air. And a lot of times when you see that and you don't expect that, despite all the experience that Askren has, but it will throw you off, and you will always revert to your default system. When you are in a fearful state, you are going to default to what your body and brain knows best. He went to change the levels, and it was just a perfect opportunity for Masvidal to land that knee. Now, again, even if he did change levels, a lot of times, more often than not, without a doubt, the wrestler wins that exchange. And again, we could be talking about how stupid Jorge Masvidal was. Why did he take that big risk in flying at him to go for that knee? We knew Askren was going to get the easy double leg. But no, he's a hero today. I mean, he's an absolute hero for going for that knee, trusting his gut, having that feeling that Askren was going to make that reaction, and he went for it. It could have gone really badly for him. He could have got taken down, controlled, chipped away at for those 5 minutes, could have been exhausted after those 5 minutes, and we'd be talking about how dominant Askren is, and how he could be next for a title shot and being undefeated. But that was not the case. Masvidal absolutely killed it on that hunch.
Michael Chiesa, fresh off a win over Diego Sanchez at UFC 239, explains why he didn't call anybody out in his post-fight interview. And now that he has some time to think about it, he talks about a potential fight against Neil Magny.
Now that you had some time to think, you didn't call about anybody in the top 10, did you? Did you call?
No, and I usually do. I usually have an opponent in mind, and you know what? This is a fight where I wanted to give Diego full credit, 100%. Full attention. I think that a lot of these guys, the last guys he beat, just got too far ahead of themselves, and I never do that. I'm always okay with having my fight lined up and having an idea of what I want to do next. But I was like, I'm not going to even take a mental break away from this guy. I'm going to give him the respect he deserves in that sense. But kind of thinking now, the only thing I was thinking after I won, the only person I wanted to say anything for was my buddy Jess, who passed away a few months ago. Really good friend of mine, really one of Sam Cecilia's best friends, and it was a tragic loss for us. He died in a climbing accident. So that was just like the one name I had in mind after I wanted to pay my respects to him. I hadn't said anything about it on social media or nothing. I just kind of was like, this is my one moment. I wanted to say something. So that was the one name I had in mind. Back to the fighting world now that I'm home. I mean, if Neil Magny can get his stuff sorted out, I'm sure he'll be looking for a fight when his USADA stuff's done, or just anybody really that's in the rankings. You know what I mean? I left lightweight being ranked like 9 or 10. So I think it's time, with 2 straight wins over 2 tough veterans, I think it's time to letting me start climbing that ladder.
Sure.
Even if I'm not ranked after this fight, I should get a ranked opponent my next fight. You know what I mean? So that's just kind of where my head's at. I think a Neil Magny fight makes sense, but I'll take anybody that's got a number next to their name for sure.